Look at somebody and tell, God knows when. He knows when to open the door you've been knocking on. He knows when to bring you out that storm you've been crying through. He knows when to lift you up after you've been laid low. You see, you've been worrying about when, but God's been working on the how. And sometimes He'll let you wait, not because He's forgotten you, but because He's preparing you. Don't you dare give up in the waiting room of your destiny, because the delay is not denial. Oh, I feel that thing. Somebody shout, God knows when. Delay is not denial, it's divine preparation. You see, so many times in life, we get frustrated when the promise doesn't show up on our timetable. We think because it hasn't happened yet, it must not be coming. But child of God, I came to tell you, just because it's delayed doesn't mean it's denied. Sometimes God will withhold the manifestation of what He promised until He's done preparing you to handle it. Because what good is a blessing if you're not built enough to bear it? God knows when. He knows when you're ready. He knows when the environment is right. And He knows when your faith is strong enough not to fumble what He's about to release. See, we serve a God who doesn't just bless by opportunity. He blesses by timing. And timing, my friend, is everything in the kingdom. The delay you're experiencing is not punishment, it's process. It's God's way of shaping you, pruning you, strengthening you, and preparing you for what He has prepared for you. If you move too early, you might mess up what was meant to bless you. Sometimes God hides the thing you prayed for behind a season of silence. He'll let you feel forgotten, not because you are, but because He wants you to grow. He wants you to learn faith when you can't feel Him, trust when you can't trace Him, and praise when you don't perceive progress. The delay becomes divine training ground. Every no, every not yet, every closed door, it's all part of His divine calendar. When you look at Joseph, God gave him a dream when he was just a boy, but the dream didn't come true right away. Oh no, Joseph had to go through betrayal, through the pit, through Potiphar's house, and through prison before he ever stood in Pharaoh's palace. That wasn't denial, that was divine preparation. God was building leadership in him through hardship. He was teaching him integrity in isolation. Because when the dream finally came to pass, Joseph wasn't just ready to receive it, he was ready to steward it. You might be in a pit right now. You might be in a place where you're saying, oh Lord, when will the breakthrough come? When will the door open? When will the promise manifest? And heaven's answer is the same as it was for Joseph. God knows when. He hasn't forgotten you. The delay is building muscle. The delay is producing endurance. The delay is working maturity into your spirit. You are becoming the kind of person who can handle what you asked for. See, God's love will delay you to develop you. If He gave you everything you wanted right now, it might destroy you. Some blessings are too heavy for immature hands. So He waits until you've cried enough tears to appreciate it. He waits until you've learned to worship without a reason. He waits until you've stopped chasing approval and started chasing Him. Because only then can He trust you with the blessing that carries His name. Somebody in here has been frustrated with the delay. You've been thinking, Lord, what's taken so long? But let me remind you, delay is not denial. It's divine synchronization. God is aligning pieces you can't even see. He's speaking to people you haven't even met. He's arranging circumstances that will make sense later. Sometimes what feels like delay is God's protection. Sometimes what feels like a closed door is actually a shield from disaster. Think about Moses. He thought he was ready to deliver Israel at 40. He had passion. He had vision. but he didn't have discipline. So God sent him to the backside of the desert for 40 more years. That wasn't wasted time. That was preparation time. Because when the burning bush finally appeared, Moses was no longer a hot-headed prince. He was a humble shepherd who knew how to listen. The delay built his character so the calling wouldn't crush him. You may be delayed, but you're not denied. Every moment in the waiting room of your destiny is working for your good. The oil flows when the time is right. David was anointed long before he was appointed. Samuel poured oil on his head, but Saul still sat on the throne. Can you serve faithfully under somebody else's crown while you wait on yours? Can you play the harp in Saul's palace while God hides your own throne? That's the real test of faith. David didn't rush God. He let the delay refine him. He learned how to fight lions and bears before he ever faced Goliath, because God knew when. When you understand divine timing, you stop panicking about the clock. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. You stop thinking you're late. Baby, you're not late. You're right on schedule. God is not operating on your watch. He's operating on His word. And His word cannot return void. It has an appointed time. And when that time comes, nothing in hell or earth can stop it. Isaiah said it like this: "Thou tarry, wait for it, for it shall surely come, it will not delay." Habakkuk 2:3 echoes the same truth. God's delays are never indefinite. They are intentional. They are the gap between promise and manifestation, the sacred space where faith grows up. And sometimes the reason God delays is because He's waiting for you to change. He's waiting for you to release bitterness, forgive that person, let go of control, or surrender that timeline. Because once your heart is aligned, His hand can move. So don't despise the delay. Don't curse the season. That's making you strong. There's a purpose behind every pause. There's glory in the waiting. There's growth in the silence. When you finally step into what God has for you, you'll look back and thank Him for not giving it to you sooner. You'll say, "Lord, now I see you were never late. You were just delay is not denial. It's divine preparation." God knows when to release, when to reveal, when to resurrect, when to restore. Your job is not to rush Him. It's to trust Him. Because when the time comes, when the season shifts, when heaven says, "Now," everything that was held up will come together suddenly. And you'll realize that the same delay that frustrated you was the very thing that formed you. So hold on, stay faithful, keep worshiping, keep working, keep believing, because the God who promised it is the God who performs it. It might not happen when you thought it would, but it will happen exactly when God knows it should. And when it does, you'll see that every delay was divine. God's timing protects what your talent can't handle yet. You see, talent can open doors that character isn't ready to walk through. Gift will get you there, but only growth will keep you there. Some of us have been praying for God to elevate us, to expand our territory, to pour out blessings that we know we have the ability to handle. But what if the delay isn't about your ability? What if it's about your maturity? What if God knows that if He gave you what you're asking for right now, it would crush you instead of crown you? God's timing is not just about opportunity, it's about protection. Sometimes He'll hold you back, not because He's withholding something good from you, but because He's saving you from the weight of it. Every promotion carries pressure. Every blessing brings responsibility. And if your roots aren't deep enough, the wind of success will blow you over. So God, in His infinite wisdom, waits. He waits until your soul is strong enough to sustain the blessing that your talent can attract. Look at David. He was talented. He could play the harp, kill a giant, lead men into battle. The anointing was on him. The oil had been poured. The prophecy had been declared, but God still let Saul sit on the throne. Why? Because timing protects purpose. David wasn't ready yet for the palace. He still had lessons to learn in the pasture. He needed to learn humility, restraint, and dependence on God. If he'd been promoted too soon, he might have become another Saul, gifted but disobedient, anointed but arrogant. So God kept him in hiding, not to punish him, but to protect him from premature promotion. Some of us are frustrated because our gift is ready, but our grace isn't. We know how to perform, but we haven't learned how to persevere. We can impress people, but we haven't learned how to endure pain. So God slows us down. He allows situations that teach us to depend on Him. He'll let you sing in small rooms before He trusts you with a stage. He'll let you lead a few before He gives you many, because the stage magnifies whatever's inside of you. If insecurity lives there, the spotlight will expose it. If pride hides there, the platform will amplify it. But if humility and integrity live there, then the glory will rest safely on you. Talent can't carry what timing can sustain. You might be able to run fast, but if you start the race before the gun sounds, you'll get disqualified. God is not interested in speed. He's interested in sequence. He's a God of order. There is a season for planting, and there is a season for harvest. You can't rush a seed to become a tree. You have to let it grow through process, buried, watered, hidden, stretched. The dirt that covers you isn't punishment. It's protection. It's protection. It's God saying, I'm shielding you from exposure until your roots are strong enough to hold the fruit. Sometimes the protection feels like rejection. It feels like God's ignoring your gift, overlooking your ability, passing you by. But child of God, He's not passing you by. He's positioning you perfectly. He's protecting you from people who would misuse your gift. He's protecting you from opportunities that look good, but would drain your spirit. He's protecting you from success that would seduce you away from Him. You think you're ready for it, but He knows the private battles you still haven't conquered. He knows the parts of you that still need healing, the wounds that would bleed under pressure. So He waits, and while you're waiting, He's working. He's refining you in the dark so that when the light shines, you won't crumble under it. He's developing patience, humility, and endurance, qualities that talent alone can't give you. Because when the doors finally open, He wants you to be able to stand, not stumble. God's timing protects you from sabotaging your own destiny. Sometimes He'll delay your success because He's teaching you how to steward it. He's given you the wisdom to manage what's coming. You ever notice that Jesus didn't start His ministry until He was 30? He was gifted from birth, anointed from the womb, yet He spent decades in obscurity. The Son of God worked as a carpenter before He ever preached a sermon. Why? Because even Jesus honored timing. He grew in wisdom and stature. He learned obedience through what He suffered. He didn't rush His moment. He waited until the Father said, now. And when His time came, the world couldn't stop what God started. So don't despise the seasons where you feel hidden. Hidden seasons are holy seasons. They are the place where God grows your heart to match your gift. If you get to the promise too fast, you won't appreciate it. But if you let God's timing prepare you, you'll be able to protect the promise once it comes. What God gives you in the right time will bless you. What you grab for too early will burden you. There are people who got what they wanted too soon. Fame without foundation, influence without integrity, power without patience, and it destroyed them. That's why all God's delays are acts of mercy. You're not behind, You're being built. You're not overlooked. You're being outfitted for something greater. He's preparing you to walk into rooms you're not intimidated by, to carry blessings you're not crushed under, to lead people you're not lost among. And when you finally step into that season, you'll realize why it took so long. You'll see that every closed door was a kind of protection. Every unanswered prayer was God whispering, "Not yet. I love you too much to let this break you." The waiting room becomes the womb of wisdom. You learn how to trust the process, how to listen to His voice, how to depend on His strength instead of your own performance. So let your heart rest in this truth. God's timing is your shield. The same God who gave you the gift will guard it until you're ready. He will not let your talent take you where your character cannot sustain you. He knows what's best for you better than you do. You may think you're ready for the platform, but He's preparing you for permanence. You may crave recognition, but He's cultivating resilience, because when He finally releases you, He doesn't want you to visit the promise. He wants you to live in it. There's coming a time when the doors will open, the opportunities will align, and everything that felt delayed will suddenly make sense. You'll see how His timing protected you. You'll realize that what you thought was slow was actually safe. And you'll thank God for every not yet that saved you from a never. So keep growing, keep serving where you are. Keep developing the unseen parts of you, because when the fullness of time comes, nothing can keep you from what's yours. The God who gave you the gift will reveal it at the perfect moment, and when He does, you'll stand strong, not just talented, but trusted. That's why you can praise Him even in the waiting, because His timing isn't late, it's loving. His delays aren't rejection, they're protection, they're protection. You might not understand it now, but one day you'll look back and say, if He had given it to me then, I would have lost it. But He knew what I didn't. God's timing protected what my talent couldn't handle yet. When it's not happening, He's still happening. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean God isn't moving. We serve a God who works in the invisible, a God who orchestrates miracles behind the curtain of time. He is the kind of God who can be silent and still be speaking, hidden yet still active, quiet yet still powerful. When it looks like nothing is shifting, He's shifting everything. When you think heaven has gone quiet, it's actually planning your next breakthrough. You've got to understand that God is never still in the way we think of stillness. We define movement by what we can see, but God defines movement by what He's doing in dimensions we can't see. While you're saying, Lord, it's not happening, God is saying, child, I'm still happening. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't slumber, and He doesn't stop working just because you've run out of patience. His silence doesn't mean absence. His quiet doesn't mean inactivity. He's building, shaping, and arranging things that you don't even know need to be fixed. Think about a seed in the soil. Once it's planted, you don't see anything on the surface for a while. Days go by, maybe weeks, and it looks like nothing is happening. But under the dirt, in the darkness, in the hidden place, something's breaking open. Roots are forming, cells are multiplying, and life is taking shape. The seed looks dead, but it's not dead. It's developing. That's how God works. While you're looking at the surface of your situation saying, Lord, where are you? He's in the soil of your life doing what only He can do. We want results we can measure, progress we can post, change we can photograph. But God often does His best work in private, in silence, in the unseen spaces of the soul. You think you're stuck, but he's stabilizing you. You think you're forgotten, but he's fortifying you. When it's not happening, he's still happening. His power doesn't depend on your perception. He doesn't need to announce every move to prove he's moving. When the disciples were on the boat in the middle of the storm, the wind was raging, the waves were crashing, and Jesus was asleep. They thought his silence meant he didn't care. But he was still in control. He was still in the boat. Just because he wasn't speaking didn't mean he wasn't sovereign. You might be in a storm right now, and it feels like God's not saying a word, but don't mistake his stillness for absence. He's in the boat with you, and if he's in it, it can't go under. Sometimes God will withhold visible progress to strengthen invisible faith. If he answered every prayer instantly, you'd never develop endurance. If he moved every mountain immediately, you'd never learn how to climb. So he hides his hand, not to harm you, but to help you grow. He's still happening in the delay, still happening in the detour, still happening in the drought. When Elijah prayed for rain, he sent his servant to look toward the sea. The servant went 6 times and saw nothing, but Elijah kept praying because he understood. Just because it's not happening doesn't mean it's not coming. On the 7th time, the servant said, I see a cloud the size of a man's hand. That's all God needs, a small sign to show that he's still happening. You might not see the full picture yet, but there's a cloud forming over your life. There's something stirring beneath the surface. You can't see it, but it's real. That's why faith is not about sight. It's about trust. Faith says, even when it looks like nothing's changing, I know my God is still working. Faith doesn't depend on updates. It depends on understanding that God is faithful even when he's quiet. In the book of Esther, God's name is never mentioned. Not once, but he's all over the story. Behind every decision, every twist, every moment, he's moving. While Esther was being prepared in the palace, while Mordecai was standing at the gate, while Haman was plotting destruction, God was still happening. By the time the story unfolded, you could look back and see his fingerprints everywhere. That's how God works. He weaves his will so seamlessly into time that you don't see him until after he's finished. Some of you have been praying for years, believing for change, and it feels like heaven's been silent. But I came to remind you, God's silence is not his absence. You may not see a sign, you may not feel a shift, but he's still God. He's still working. He's still holding your life together in ways you don't even realize. Sometimes the quiet seasons are the most holy ones. Sometimes the stillness is sacred. When it's not happening in your life, it might be happening in your heart. God uses invisible seasons to do internal surgery. He's healing wounds you've learned to hide. He's teaching you to trust without evidence. He's molding your faith so it's not based on feelings, but on foundation. He's still happening in your mind, in your emotions, in your relationships, in your atmosphere. You just can't see it yet. You might feel like nothing's moving, but check your roots. You're stronger now than you were before. You pray differently now. You worship with more depth. You've learned to stand even when you don't understand. That's not nothing. That's growth. That's God still happening. Every tear that fell every night you thought you wouldn't make it, every prayer that left your lips and seemed unanswered, it was all working together. You were being built in the background. When it's not happening in your timeline, it's happening in God's. He's aligning people, shifting resources, orchestrating connections. He's speaking to the hearts of people who will be part of your next miracle. You can't see it because he's working in rooms you haven't entered yet. He's preparing places for you while he prepares you for those places. So don't give up just because you don't see activity. Heaven's always active. The enemy would love for you to think that silence means defeat, that stillness means nothing's working. But the truth is, God is never inactive. He's the God who spoke the universe into existence, and he hasn't stopped speaking. His word is still alive, still moving, still manifesting. The same word that held the sun in the sky is holding your promise in place. It might not be visible, but it's viable. It's alive beneath the surface, waiting for the right time to burst forth. So learn to rest in what you can't see. Learn to trust when it looks still. Because when God is quiet, it's not because he's forgotten, it's because he's finishing. And when the time comes, you'll look around and realize that everything you thought was stagnant was secretly being set up. The job that didn't come through, the door that didn't open, the prayer that wasn't answered the way you wanted, it was all part of his unseen movement. When it's not happening, he's still happening. He's the God of process, the God of patience, the God of purpose. He's not late, he's not lost, and he's not idle. He's happening in ways you can't track, in places you can't touch, in timing you can't predict. And when his plan finally breaks through the surface, you'll see that he was happening all along. So keep believing, even in the stillness. Keep trusting, even when it's quiet. Because silence is not a sign of inactivity. It's a setup for revelation. And when he reveals what he's been doing all this time, you'll fall to your knees and say, Lord, I thought nothing was happening, but you were happening all along. The wait is the womb of the promise. Waiting is not wasted time. It's sacred time. It's the season when God conceives, forms, and matures what he has spoken into your life. Every promise God gives you has a gestation period. Just like a seed planted in the earth or a child growing in the womb, it must go through process before it comes to pass. You can't rush it, you can't force it, and you can't shortcut it. You have to wait it out, trust it through, and let God bring it forth in his time. The womb doesn't look like the promise. It's dark, it's enclosed, it's hidden. Nobody celebrates the womb, they celebrate the birth. But without the womb, there can be no birth. Without waiting, there can be no manifestation. When God gives you a promise, he also gives you a process, and the process always involves waiting. Waiting develops faith, patience, endurance, and dependence. It stretches you, humbles you, and refines you until what's inside of you is ready to live outside of you. We often despise waiting because it feels like nothing is happening. But in the spirit, everything is happening. The wait is where your roots go deep. It's where your character is formed. It's where your faith learns to breathe without evidence. You might not see any visible progress, but under the surface, God is forming something divine. The promise is being shaped, matured, and prepared to survive in the world it's being sent into. Think about a pregnant woman. She doesn't see the baby right away, but she knows it's there. She feels movement. She feels stretching. She feels weight. And with every passing month, she grows in expectation. That's what waiting in God feels like. Carrying something you can't see yet, but knowing it's real. The pain you feel, the stretching, the pressure, it's not punishment, it's preparation. It's the promise growing inside of you. You can't rush a pregnancy without risking the baby. If you force something to be born before its time, it won't survive. And that's why God sometimes makes you wait longer than you want to. He's protecting the promise from premature delivery. He knows that if you get it too soon, it won't last. The waiting period ensures that what's coming out of you is strong enough to live. So don't fight the waiting season, embrace it, because the wait is the womb, and the womb is where life develops. Look at Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but they had to wait decades before Isaac was born. The promise was sure, but the process was slow. They tried to speed it up by producing Ishmael, and that brought nothing but confusion. Whenever you try to rush what God is growing, you'll end up creating complications. The promise must be born, not manufactured. The womb of waiting is where God removes impatience and replaces it with trust. In the wait, God teaches you how to depend on His word, not your circumstances. Sarah laughed because it seemed impossible, but God still did it. The longer the wait, the greater the testimony, because when it finally happens, you'll know it wasn't you, it was Him. You'll know that His promise is stronger than your impatience. Every delay, every moment of silence, every unanswered prayer becomes part of the womb that nurtures the miracle. Even Jesus waited. He waited 30 years before stepping into public ministry. He waited until the fullness of time. God never moves early, and He never moves late. The wait is His divine timing at work. When Mary conceived, she didn't deliver the next day. She had to carry that holy promise for 9 months. She had to endure discomfort, misunderstanding, and uncertainty. But she held on because she knew what was inside of her came from God. Some of you are carrying a divine assignment, and it's heavy. You feel the weight of it, the pressure of it, but don't abort it through frustration. Hold on through the waiting, because what God placed inside of you is too precious to lose. The womb is also a place of protection. God hides you there until the promise is ready. That's why sometimes it feels like you're isolated or forgotten, but you're not forgotten. You're covered. You're being shielded from exposure until the right time. The womb may feel lonely, but it's necessary. Nobody can see what's happening in there, but something powerful is developing. When God finally brings it forth, everyone will see the glory, but only you will know the story. Waiting teaches you to trust the unseen. It teaches you to keep praising when you don't see progress. It matures your faith from God. Do it now. To God, do it right. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes and start surrendering to process. Because when you understand that the wait is the womb, you stop resenting the delay. You start respecting it. You start saying, Lord, I know you're growing something in me. I don't understand it, but I trust you. Sometimes the longer you wait, the bigger the promise. Hannah cried for years for a child, but when God finally opened her womb, she gave birth to Samuel, the prophet who anointed kings. Her waiting wasn't wasted. It was womb time. The tears watered the soil of her faith. Her prayers became the contractions that pushed the promise forth. Waiting doesn't mean God's forgotten. It means He's forming something worth the wait. You may be in that in-between season right now where God's word has been spoken but not yet fulfilled. You've got a promise, but no proof. You've got a vision, but no visibility. That's the womb season. It's dark, it's quiet, and it's uncomfortable. But don't give up. The darkness is where life begins. God always bursts greatness out of hidden places. Every dream, every purpose, every calling starts in the womb of waiting. So instead of asking, how long, Lord, start asking, what are you forming in me, Lord? Because the wait isn't just about what you're getting. It's about who you're becoming. While you're waiting on the promise is working on you. It's teaching you patience, endurance, humility, and trust. When it finally comes, you'll realize that you're not the same person who started waiting. The waiting didn't just prepare the promise, it prepared you. And when the appointed time arrives, when God says, now the same one that held you will release you. The pain will give way to purpose. The pressure will turn into praise. The tears will become testimony. You'll hold in your hands what you once only carried in your heart. And you'll say, it was worth the wait. So don't curse the womb. Don't resent the waiting. It's holy ground. It's where God turns seeds into sons, dreams into destiny, and promises into power. The wait is not empty, it's expectant. It's not still, it's sacred. And the longer you stay in the womb of His will, the stronger the promise will be when it's born. You might not see it yet, but something is growing inside of you, something God breathed, something heaven ordained. Don't rush it. Don't doubt it. Just wait. And while you wait, worship. Because the wait is the womb of the promise. And what God is forming in you will be worth every moment it took to bring forth. What God ordains, He sustains. When God calls you, when He commissions you, when He places His hand upon your life, He doesn't walk away and leave you to figure it out on your own. He carries what He creates. He upholds what He ordains. He provides for what He commands. If it started in God, it will be sustained by God. You may run out of strength, but He never runs out of supply. You may feel unqualified, under-equipped, or overwhelmed, but if He ordained it, He'll sustain it. So many of us live under the weight of trying to keep something alive that God never authorized, or trying to maintain something by our own effort that only grace can sustain. That's why burnout happens. That's why fear creeps in, because we're trying to do God's job with human hands. But if it's His vision, it will come with His provision. If it's His assignment, it will come with His alignment. You don't have to manipulate what He's already mandated. You just have to trust that the same God who spoke it will supply it. When God ordained Noah to build the ark, He gave him every instruction he needed. He told him the dimensions, the materials, the structure, down to the last detail. He didn't just call him to build, He gave him the blueprint. And then God sustained him through the flood. The same rain that destroyed others lifted Noah higher. Why? Because what God ordains, He sustains. The ark didn't float because Noah was brilliant. It floated because Noah was obedient. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be obedient. When you follow the command, God carries the weight. There are times when we step into something God has called us to, and we feel the pressure of trying to hold it all together. The ministry, the business, the family, the dream, it feels heavy. But remember this, God never gives vision without provision. He doesn't call you out into deep waters just to let you drown. If He led you there, He's already placed everything you need along the way. His calling carries its own covering. His will comes with its own resources. Think about Elijah. God told him to declare a drought and then told him to go hide by the brook Cherith. While everyone else was struggling, God sent ravens to feed him. Ravens, birds that normally scavenge, became messengers of provision. That's what happens when God sustains you. He'll use unexpected sources to take care of you. You'll look around and say, I don't even know how I'm still standing, but you are, because He's sustaining you. When the brook dried up, God didn't panic. He had already arranged a widow in Zarephath to keep Elijah. That's divine sustenance, God providing step by step, season by season, never early, never late. Sometimes God will strip away your visible sources so you can recognize your invisible source. You'll think the brook is your blessing, but really it was just the channel. The moment you start depending on the channel, God closes it so you'll look back to the source. Because if you ever confuse what God uses with who God is, you'll start worshiping provision instead of the provider. The same God who ordained the brook, ordained the drought. The same God who sent the ravens sent the next instruction. He's not finished when one thing dries up. He's already preparing another. When you're walking in divine ordination, you don't have to chase opportunities. They chase you. You don't have to force open doors. They open on their hinges because you're moving in sync with heaven. God's favor fuels what he's authored. That's why Jesus could say, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me. The will of God becomes your nourishment. It feeds you, strengthens you, sustains you, even in your weakness. His purpose keeps you standing. Think about the Israelites in the wilderness. God ordained their journey from Egypt to end. He didn't promise them it would be easy, but he promised to be with them. And he sustained them every single day. Manna from heaven, water from rocks, a cloud by day and fire by night. He didn't give them a month's worth of food at once. He gave them enough for the day. That's divine sustenance. It teaches you to trust God daily. It teaches you that your life doesn't depend on your storage, but on his supply. Some of us want security more than faith. We want God to show us the whole plan, but he only gives us daily bread because he knows if he gave us the full picture, we'd stop trusting him for the next step. What God ordains, he sustains, but he does it progressively. You don't see the whole staircase, just one step at a time. And each step proves that his grace is sufficient. When God ordained Moses to lead Israel, Moses tried to disqualify himself. I can't speak. I'm not eloquent. I'm not ready. But God said, who made man's mouth? In other words, I sustain what I ordain. Moses didn't have to be perfect. He just had to be available. When God sends you, he supplies what's missing. He covers what you lack. His ordination fills your deficiency. If you're walking in his will, you will never walk alone. Sometimes you'll look at your life and think, how am I still here? After all the storms, all the setbacks, all the seasons where you almost gave up, and yet you're still standing. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's divine sustenance. You've been carried by unseen hands. You've been lifted by unseen strength. What others thought would destroy, you only developed you. Because when God ordains your purpose, no opposition can overturn it. Even when you fall, his grace sustains you. When you're weary, his strength upholds you. When you're confused, his wisdom guides you. God's ordination is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing covenant. He doesn't just call you and walk away. He keeps you, holds you, and maintains you through every season. That's why Paul could say, being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. The one who began it will finish it. You don't have to fear the future when you're following the one who holds it. You don't have to question if you'll make it, because the one who called you is committed to keeping you. When it's God's plan, you can rest in God's provision. When it's his assignment, you can rely on his anointing. You don't have to hustle to hold it together. You just have to stay surrendered. What God ordains, he sustains. That means your job is obedience. His job is outcome. Your task is faithfulness. His task is fulfillment. And he's never failed to sustain what he's started. So don't let fear convince you that you have to make it happen. Don't let worry steal the peace that comes from divine assurance. If it's God's idea, it will have God's endurance. You can walk boldly into what he's called you to do because heaven is underwriting it. The same hand that opened the door will hold it open. The same grace that began the miracle will carry it to completion. The same word that birthed your calling will sustain it until it's fulfilled. What God ordains, He sustains completely, faithfully, eternally. And when you look back over your life, you'll see that at every time you thought you couldn't make it, His hand was holding you up all along. Oh, somebody better get ready, because when you start to see what God's been doing through every moment, every tear, every delay, every closed door, you'll understand that God knows when. He knows when to start it. He knows when to stop it. And He knows when to show it. From the first breath you took to the battle you're facing right now, nothing has caught Him off guard. He is the God of perfect timing, the God of divine order, the God who moves with precision and purpose. You've been asking, when, Lord? But heaven's been whispering back, wait, because I know when. You've been frustrated by delay, but God's been developing your destiny. You've been worried about doors that won't open, but God's been strengthening your character to stand when they do. You've been staring at silence, but He's been working behind the curtain, aligning people, places, and seasons so that when the time comes, everything will fit together perfectly. You thought the delay was a denial, but it was divine preparation. You thought the timing was off, but it was divine protection. You thought nothing was happening, but God was still happening. And through it all, He's been sustaining you, holding you, carrying you, molding you for what He has ordained. Every step, every struggle, every setback was part of the schedule of your destiny. God doesn't waste time, and He doesn't waste pain. He uses every season to shape the promise. So don't despise the wait, because the wait is the womb. And the womb is where the miracle is being formed. Don't rush what God is still growing. Don't push what He's still preparing. He knows the right time to bring it forth. And when that moment comes, when the appointed time arrives, what took years will happen in moments. What you prayed for in private will be revealed in public. What you carried in pain will be birthed in power. You'll look back and say, if it had happened earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. But God knew when. He knew when to open the door. He knew when to turn the page. He knew when to release the rain. He knew when to let the promise come forth. So stand still and trust Him. The same God who started the work will sustain it. The same God who called you will keep you. The same God who delayed it will deliver it right on time. You might not know how, you might not know where, you might not even know why, but you can rest in this truth. God knows when. When it's time to move, He'll move you. When it's time to bless, He'll bless you. When it's time to reveal, He'll reveal you. And when the clock of heaven strikes, now no power in hell can stop it. So lift your head, dry your tears, and hold your faith. You're not late. You're in process. You're not forgotten. You're being formed. The God who promised is faithful. And when it happens, it will happen suddenly, swiftly, and supernaturally. Somebody shout it with faith in your spirit. G-O-D-K-O-L-S-A-G-A. He knows when to heal, when to restore, when to release, when to fulfill, when to turn it around. You may not see it yet, but it's coming. The timing is set. The promise is alive. The purpose is sure. And when it comes together, you'll look back and say, now I see why I had to wait. Now I see why it took so long. Now I see God knew when all along. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep waiting, because your time is in His hands, and His hands never miss the moment. God knows when